Alright, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun Reviews, and we're back with more Batman the Animated Series. Whoa. Just like Batman, it feels like I'm coming down with something in this for this episode. Well, welcome back to my reviews of Batman the Animated Series. We review every single episode as close to when they aired as possible. Last week I kind of cheated because I was just I wanted to get to the Joker right away. But this week we're talking about Heart of Ice. Now, there's like all sorts of kind of contentious, like what the episodes aired. But I'm going off of IMDb, and I'm going off of my heart that I remember. And it says in there that it's September 92. They're saying it's episode 14, but sometimes shows get made and aired out of order. So we're going with what I have for the list. Like next week, I believe it's going to be, we're doing Feet of Clay next, which I remember all these coming out really early. So it's just, if you guys don't agree with me, sorry, this is how we're doing it. So we're doing Heart of Ice, which came out in September of 92, and is considered by a lot of people, including myself, to be, some people think it's the best. It might be. I haven't seen all of them in a row, or in a while, to make that judgment. It's definitely in the top 5 probably, though, for me. It's just an amazing story. It really changes, it did something with villains that really wasn't done, which was give them pathos, give them real motivations, give them sympathy, give you questions about for the character of Batman himself. Pardon me. For the character of Batman himself to kind of question, do I even stop this guy, kind of thing. But at the time of this episode, the character of Mr. Freeze wasn't in the comics. He had been killed off in the comics, and the show brought him back, brought the character back with giving him this story, this backstory that's unique. So anytime anybody uses this story of Mr. Freeze with the Nora's wife story, her in the cryogenic chamber and everything, that's all Paul Dini and them. Before this, because I listened to the commentary track and everything, and before this, Mr. Freeze was just kind of a low-level character, and he was on the Adam West show, and he was more of a silly character. So what they did here really changed things as far as that. It's also good to point out that Mike Mignola, the creator of Hellboy, was partially responsible for the redesign of Mr. Freeze in this episode. There's a moment where Batman says, "My God," when he watches the video of Freeze's accident. Normally that's unheard of because censors usually consider that swearing, basically saying when people say God or Jesus, they consider that an expletive back then, and especially at a kids show. There's a lot of things that they kind of push the envelope on. This is Bruce Timm's and Paul Dini's first script and director, as Bruce Timm's direction. Ferris Boyle, the villain in this, is voiced by Mark Hamill. This was before he was cast as the Joker. It's interesting that they said when they brought him in that he was asking about, is there anybody else that you guys can get me to play, any other villains? And he mentioned the Joker, and they had already cast it. So it's kind of interesting that he was never going to be the Joker, but they decided to recast and give him a shot and became the Joker. So that's, we're talking about this in a Heart of Ice episode. It's kind of really interesting. Hamill himself said he based the character of Ferris Boyle on Phil Hartman. I was expecting more, when I rewatched this, to actually hear more Phil Hartman, but maybe Hamill knew Phil Hartman in real life or something like that, because Hartman's characters are usually more like the guy from Futurama or the lawyer from The Simpsons, Lionel Hutz, or Zapp Brannigan kind of style. So this was more of a laid-back character, even though he's very duplicitous and he has a second side to him. So he's got the funny, the nice side, the business side that he shows people, and then there's the man who's the vicious industrialist behind the scenes, which is very interesting. And I always thought that that's interesting that his name is Ferris Boyle, and he's getting an Industrialist of the Year award, and he's a real a-hole. And it just made me think Ferris Bueller. Ferris Bueller is really a grade A-hole. And I wonder if they based that, like, on Ferris Bueller, kind of. Like, because, look, I love Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but Ferris Bueller's in it. He's an a-hole. Okay. Let's see. This was considered in 2002's polls at a website called World's Finest. It was named the best. And Michael Ansara, who did the voice of Mr. Freeze, he was new to voice work and had a hard time getting the robotic way that they wanted to talk, the character to talk. He was used to being inflective and very acting. Man, this really is actually really, like, feasible as, like, because Bats has got a cold in this episode. So they had a really hard time getting the voice down. And his character having that, the reason that they said he sounds like that is because of his accident and not dying. He no longer has a fear of death. And so he sounds like an emotionless robot because he's just, like what he says, like, I've had all the emotion washed out of me, basically. There's two Empire Strikes Back references in this. One is the Bacta-like tank that Batman uses to heal the villain here that's got his legs frozen. The other is when Batman is hung upside down frozen and he has to get himself out. And like always, we're going to mention just really quickly this time the people that worked on it. And since they had a hard, they were really working on the sound, we're going to talk about we're just going to mention the people from the sound department in this. Harry Andronis, who was the sound re-recording engineer. Russell Brower, the sound effects editor and sound effects. Bradley Caro, the sound reader. Robert Hargreaves, sound effects. Mark Keats and Aaron L. King as dialogue editors. Andy King as Andrew I. King at the time, second sound re-recording engineer. Tom Madeck as re-recording mixer. Jeff M. Sliney as the dialogue editor. Matthew A. Thorne as Matt Thorne at the time, sound effects, and Denise Whitfield was the sound reader on this. And I just, like I said, I like to try to mention people from the background of the show that don't get mentioned in all this stuff, because we always talk about Kevin, and we always talk about Mark, and we talk about Bruce and Paul and everybody else, and even, like Efren Zimbalist Jr. But the people behind the scenes don't get a mention. So that's my little nod to you guys if you ever see this. Even if you don't, it's nice to give the little guys, a shout out. I'm trying to think of any other little details that I got before we just talk about this. They mentioned that there's cell dirt on Batman's lip in all the episodes, that they never got that fixed. It's also interesting that because of this episode, pretty soon afterwards, the animation studio that worked on this shut down, and part of it was how much work they were putting into episodes like this. Like I said, the Long Lost Wife idea was the animated series idea. This wasn't from the comics. Also, this villain being, the template of him being angry at a third party and not against Batman became a thing for a lot of the characters to make them more sympathetic, to make them more like this. These aren't just a bunch of people that are, typical arch villains that want to take over the world. They have purpose. They're looking for their own vengeance or justice, same as Batman, which puts into question, like, they're vigilantes in their own way. They're just more violent. They're the ones that are willing to kill, which makes them different from Batman in a lot of, in most ways, in every way, basically. They also said that the animators airbrushed the helmet of Mr. Freeze of every shot so that it would give him that extra gloss. They just wanted like a little, just put a little line around it so everybody knows there's a helmet there, but they put in all that extra detail. And unfortunately, all that extra work looks like it kind of cost them, like, the company. It's a shame. There's a scene where the gun is pointed at the screen, and apparently you couldn't do that on a kid's show, but because it was a freeze gun and it's not replicable, that they said Daddy doesn't have this lying around the house, that it was okay. It didn't have bullets. It was a freeze gun. So the camera, because it's been dormant for sitting there for a little while. And the last thing is, like I was thinking at the same time, was in Freeze's accident video, they say, what I was thinking is, how many cameras did Mr. Freeze have filming himself at the time of this tragic accident? I thought that was really good, because he says that in retrospect he would have liked to have done that as just one shot and not a bunch of cameras, which they say, well, you know, most audience members aren't going to notice this when they watch it. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm not most audience members. I imagine if after this many times, man, a lot of you guys aren't either. So we get into the episode, and I do say that for my part, this is one of the best episodes of any animated show. And we got the attacks on GothCorp and Ferris Boyle, who I equals Ferris A-hole to me. He's taking all these pieces to make this big freeze gun, which leads, like, he's doing all this to lead up to the end. Like, he's planning on taking this stuff from the guy, letting him try to figure out who he is, and then do it at the end. When Batman's trying to put it together, we got the line from Alfred saying, "Taking up video games, sir." It also made me think, he's like, all these places from GothCorp, there's only one place that would have the final piece. And I'm like, how many GothCorp's companies, buildings are there in Gotham, and how big is Gotham to hold that many? And for a place like Gotham City that's such a crap hole, they sure put out a lot of interesting tech. And I mean, I guess it's because Batman's there, but like, wouldn't he think that, like, maybe I should make my stuff a little more secret, because I don't know. But it's world. It's just a show. When he says, when Batman goes, "Freeze!" Like, freeze, put your hands up kind of thing, and he's like, "That's Mr. Freeze to you." I love it. Also, when he freezes one of the villain's legs, and he's leaving, normally these thugs don't, thugs aren't written to give a crap about anything, but they actually care about the man that they're leaving behind. Like, he's one of us. Like, what are you doing? Like, and it was just to show more, like, Freeze's callousness and coldness. But it was interesting because you don't see that kind of level of care of other villains for for the people that they work with. That you're leaving a man behind, and the emotion behind it is really rare for anything, let alone a cartoon. Which I thought was great, because that means Batman, takes care of the guy. And while it's not, like they say, not too altruistic, he wanted to find plans for how to beat the freeze gun, he still saved the guy and took care of him. Also, the animation around the Bacta tank, I'm going to call it the Bacta tank because I don't know what else to call it, was really, really cool. It looked like Victor Frankenstein's kind of machine equipment, which is funny because it's Victor Freeze that did this to the guy. Alfred always gets all the great lines because he's like, "With all the compartments on your belt, you'd think there'd be one for tissues." So Batman has a cold in this, and that helps. Like, that's an interesting way for Kevin Conroy to play this, because you can hear it. It's like how people play drunk. But I imagine having to pretend to be sick has got to be a little harder, because I don't think you can just. I couldn't just pretend to be sick. I mean, maybe I haven't tried. Huh? That's funny. Never tried to pretend to be sick. Like, when you had people that call in sick at work and they're like, I've never done that. But I also say, I bring up Mark Hamill is great as Ferris, as this duplicitous character, and he's a jerk, and so of course, I mean, he's a real jerk, and in this film, you see the real side of him. So, like, and even Bruce sees it for a second, where he's like, "Oh, I'm getting a humanitarian award," but when he brings it, it's like, "You got to keep the rebel down. You can't let these people, just get away with it. It's my money." And it's like, Bruce should have been like, "Don't you mean it's my money that you're talking about?" Just a typical higher up corporate jerk off. Then there's the line about how he begs, or something like that. He's like, "Compassion, charity, where were those pretty words when she needed to hear them?" And Freeze's motivations, like, it really is, like I said, it gives Batman pause to to what, how he does things, and how is he much different than the villain he's chasing. I also want to know, like, how did Bats miss the whole story? Like, why didn't he follow up when he heard about this accident? It seems like something that he would go after, but again, it's, you got 20 minutes to tell the story. And when you see the video, I mean, you realize, like, it's so tragic, and it's like, well, what would any man do for his wife? And how far would you go to get justice for what this man did? Now, when he talks about killing everybody in the room that was there, that's where he, maybe if this had just been about Ferris Boyle, Batman couldn't let him kill him, right? But I mean, part of you kind of goes, well, doesn't he kind of deserve it? That's the question. There's the line. That's the Batman line, and that's what better than the others. And it's so great how they could capture that here still. Plus, why did Ferris Boyle get so mad? A working cryogenic chamber? Cha-ching, man. Money, 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 money. Money. I mean, seriously. That's like a dream. Like, I want that, okay? We said, I want to live forever. I make jokes about it sometimes in my videos. Put my brain in a robot body. Seriously, that's like... I mean, sure, it's expensive, but, like, think about all the want to be frozen. And then he just turns it off. Like, dude, short-sighted much? It would move me to tears to shed. I love that. And when he tells Batman, you're a detective to the last... I just love this so much. Like, I'm watching this and I'm just smiling. Like, when he says, all these things, like to never see sunshine and all this, and it's like, oh, yes, I'd kill for that. The joke here where the guy asks for the keys on, he sees this big freeze gun drive up and it's just like, keys? And also, like, now you get to see, like, in the first, like, robbery we see, these are just thugs dressed as thugs, but we get proper, supervillain thugs. They're dressed in the big parkas. They do look like something that would be more in the Adam West or like in one of the Schumacher movies, but I think it's fitting. I like to see the goons look like they belong with the villain. And like, when did they decide that? And when did they get all matching ones? But you can't think about all that. We also get one of Bat's classic backhands where the guy thinks he's got the drop on him and he just smacks him in the face. Thwack. And watching this, man, really makes me mad at, like, the Batman and Robin movie. Because they used the backstory. They used that story for it. But they do it in such a cheesy way that it feels disrespectful to this source material, where they just decided, let's just mix this up with Adam West. And, I know that maybe they didn't mind it, and I probably didn't think about it that much either, but all these years later, I think, man, if there's a character that they should be doing in, like, one of the movies that could be done better and well, it's this. Because, again, you could have, like, a story about, motivated, a sympathetic villain, somebody that Batman might have a problem taking down because of why he's doing it. And I think that we get so caught up in, like, oh, we got to do the Joker, oh, we got to do the Penguin, oh, we got, like, Two-Face, that we forget about there's really good stories out there. Even Clayface would make a great movie if you based it on kind of like the Hagen character in this. Because I think Clayface isn't that bad of a character, especially in the comics right now. That's all a matter of opinion, really. And Alfred giving Bruce the chicken soup, saying it's the only way to fight a cold. And you could call that foreshadowing if you thought, like, he didn't, like it was going to be used for later. At the time, I never considered it, but it's such an interesting plot thing to just have the chicken soup, smash it into his helmet, and break it, and it's the only thing that he says, the only way to fight a cold. I mean, it's a little cheesy, but it works so well. But like I said, chicken soup saves the day, but who won really? Because while Batman serves up justice with the video to the reporter, Ferris Boyle will go to jail. Freeze goes to Arkham into a special cell. Nora, where's Nora? And how did this, and it's typical of like a Batman story where no one really wins in these sad stories. But I just love the last bits of it where he's like, somewhere I hope you can hear me, out there. I don't know where you are, but somewhere where a warm hand waits for mine. And it's just, oh, it just hits you, man. Like, in a 20-minute Batman cartoon, like, they can do what most shows can't do in longer with real live action, and even the movies can't make you feel. Like, most of the time, they're fun. All the Batman movies are fun, but when did they ever actually make you, like, feel something? And so, when Batman is about to leave, watching Mr. Freeze from his perch, and he does that second take, that second back around look, where he walks and then he just kind of turns and looks back at Freeze again, like, how far away am I from you? And that's just no dialogue. All you got to be able to figure out the subtext there yourself. It doesn't hold your hand with it. It trusts you to be able to make those connections yourself. And that's why this is considered to be one of the best. And it might be the best. It might be. And, like when I think of episodes, I was so happy to get to this one. And so maybe because it's got so many layers to it. And it's animated so well and voice acted so well that I really hope you guys like this. I'm so happy that now like this old, like 44, and I'm finally talking about this, this show that I've loved for all these years, and getting to talk about this episode like this is just kind of a dream, really, to like be able to share my thoughts and feelings. And so I want you guys to share your thoughts and feelings in the comment section if you like this, but just tell me, forget about how much, if you like this review and all that stuff, tell me how this episode makes you feel. Where does this land for you guys? So in that case, like I said, if you happen to like this video, and you want to hit the like button, great. If you're not a subscriber and you like the content on the channel, please become a subscriber. Otherwise, hit the bell for all notifications. Share this video with other people that like this kind of stuff. And this is Robert Smirking Gun Review saying we'll be back next week with more Batman the Animated Series. I believe it's Feet of Clay Part 1. So maybe we'll do both at the same time. I haven't decided yet. But anyway, have a great day. Oh, and it's over. So, see ya.